Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is the weekly Spinner Rack. You're watching it. I'm hosting it. My name is Chris. The weekly Spinner Rack is basically just a live show where I get to talk about the past week's comic book news and comics. Excuse me, something just fell off my desk. It's a little earbud because today we're actually also going to be doing an interview that's coming up. My guest tonight is coming in a little later. I'm going to have Tom Scioli on, and he's done some fantastic books that I've really enjoyed. He's about to do one that I'm sure I'm going to like, a Godzilla book with a bit of a twist. We'll talk about all of that. We've got, comics that came out this week that were pretty interesting. So some that were a little unexpected in how much I enjoyed them. Some that are just poised to potentially be future classics. I know that's saying a lot, but I'm serious. And I'm going to recap Rose City Comic Con, a convention that I went to for the first time. So let me give some shout outs to people that are here in the chat. Yes, I did have this link up early, so a few people were waiting. Good. Glad people are excited to hear from Tom. I think that we'll have some fun there. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Absolutely. Oh, yes. If you can hit like, that always helps the channel. Pretty small lift on your part. Means a lot to me if you could just hit the like button. Hey, it's my sister. Always glad to have you along for the ride. It will be fun. John, yes, lovely meeting you. I'm going to recap some of that. I've got some stories. Let's see. There, we're present. I like that. Yes, checking in. Let's just start with Rose City Comic Con. So that is Portland's Comic Con. And kind of in my neighborhood, since I live in the Seattle area, a little over 2.5 hours for me to drive down there. Not too bad. But I've never gone before. I decided to this time, met some wonderful, wonderful people. And I thought I'd share some images and share what I bought there, sort of recap the convention. My one critique, they had some fantastic artists, not a lot of vendor booths, in my opinion. Like for comics specifically, let me be clear. There were 2 fudge pavilions. You know me, that's something that just, I don't understand why that's become such a thing at Comic-Cons. A lot of arts and crafts, a lot of celebrities for signing. That's cool. It's a good mix. I would just prefer a stronger focus on comics if it's called a Comic-Con. But let me add something here. This is just my Instagram page for Comic Tropes, and I've got some stuff to talk about with photos. So this is one of my heroes. This is Simon Beasley, an artist that I greatly admire. Grew up like really loving his stuff on Lobo. He did Ninja Turtle stuff. Did all sorts of stuff at like 2000 AD, like Slain. Really loved that stuff. Got to meet him. Cool thing about Rose City Comic Con, not really humongous lines to meet anybody. There was no line to meet Simon. And I go up and I just say, hey, I just want to say, thank you for all the years of entertainment. He's like, oi, mate, you like to drink? I was like, sure, I like to drink. You like beer? Now, I don't really drink beer ever since I became diabetic, but I go like, yeah, I like beer. And he goes, here, have a beer. And he just gives me like a full moon beer. Just like, here, have one. Anyway, so I got a Ninja Turtles book signed by Simon and got a funny story out of it. It's like, if Simon Beasley offers you a drink, you take it, and now I have the story, So he really cracks me up. I hope you get to too, EJ. You guys have what I would consider very different approaches to art, but you guys work with a lot of the same materials, because I know you like to vary it up with, sometimes it's traditional pencil and ink, and sometimes it's painting, and a lot of times it's digital. Anyway, he's great, tall, big, really friendly, just like one of the friendliest guys I've met in comics. What else did who else did I get to see? Oh, this was awesome. Eli and his whole crew. These are a bunch of different artists that Cosmic Lion publishes. Some really lovely books there. What I want to say, is it called Feral Star? And there's oh, I'm so bad at names. You guys know this. There's Ghost Agents. Yes, that's you on the left. Thank you. Thank you. It was great meeting you guys. And Cosmic Lion does lots of indie books, but one cool thing is they've got distribution through Diamond this year, and that means that like their stuff's going way out there a whole lot more. Yes, Relic Hunter was one of the titles I was trying to remember. Thank you. Feral Star, Relic Hunter. Oh, it's nowhere near the size of New York Comic-Con, William. It's a somewhat similar mix of stuff. New York Comic-Con, as big as it is, does still have a lot more comics vendors and a few more publishers. The only publishers with a presence were Dark Horse, and then Oni and 2000 AD each had a small presence. Yeah, Space Knight. Anyway, these guys were great. It was awesome meeting them. Who else did I meet? Aaron Lee is an artist, does a lot of stuff in Hollywood, like prints that are in galleries and stuff, but he's been a supporter on Patreon. So it was really cool to actually meet somebody like that supports this show. Let's see, who else? Oh, this is Tyler Crook and his partner Maat. You've hopefully heard of at least Harrow County, maybe the Lonesome Hunters. I think Tyler's a fantastic artist. He has a YouTube channel, Tyler Crook, and on Fridays he does live drawing or painting. It's called the Comic Book Cooldown. Great show. It was really awesome to meet them. Really, really admire them. Oh, glad to hear that you've ordered some Cosmic Lion stuff because it's so easy now. Yeah, that's really nice. Anyway, it was a real treat for me to meet these folks. I talked to them through their show, just like you guys are talking to me. I'm one of those guys that's in the regular chat for Tyler's show, so that was a treat. I got to meet West Coast Dave Engers. Dave has a nice little comic. Why did I say little? That's so demeaning. I didn't even mean to say that. I would have said that about any level, but I'm just correcting myself. Dave has a great YouTube channel. And yeah, it was awesome to meet him. We know a lot of the same people. He's definitely one of these cartoonist kayfabe guys. Look at that hat. You know, he's great. He's great. Tyler's awesome. Tyler's really cool. Well, who else did I? Oh, there's me just getting confused by the first Fudge Pavilion that I saw. The first of many. What else? There was this funny little castle spitting out bubbles. There was a kids area actually at Rose City Comic Con, and I do think that's a good idea. As in, they had a small presence from artists that do stuff at like Scholastic and kid friendly stuff, and they had some kid activities and entertainment. So I do appreciate that. I think that that's a good idea to sort of have a section for that. What else? Okay, there's Simon Beasley. What else didn't I have more than that? Oh yeah, Mike Mignola. I'm a huge fan of Hellboy. He was really funny, actually. He was really, really funny. I got to meet Jamar Nicholas. Now, Jamar does one of these books that is sort of all ages and mainly for kids. It's called Leon the Extraordinary. It's this inner city kid, Leon, who wants to be a superhero, and he's like always problem solving. He's got a great graphic novel. I'll show you guys in a minute, but Jamar is awesome. He also does sort of a online show, not sort of an online show with artist Mike Manley, Pencil to Pencil, and sometimes they interview pros. They talk about the industry. It's a good show. Yeah, met Mike Mignola. I've met him before, but it's been a long time, so I wouldn't have expected. He didn't remember me, and that's okay. But I have gotten like a Hellboy sketch from him before. It was a long time ago. Yeah. I'm glad that you guys can see what some of these artists look like. There's Patton Oswalt. Now, Rose City, as I say, didn't have tremendous lines necessarily. There were a few creators that had bigger lines, and some of that was probably their availability, like they weren't always at their table. So, for instance, Brian Michael Bendis, when he was signing, Chip Zdarsky, Patton Oswalt was probably the biggest line. I would have loved to have been able to get my comic signed by him, but the line was bigger than I wanted to deal with. Oh, that's a friend of mine, Bryn, that does cosplay. He did a good job on that one. There's Chip Zdarsky with his leg up on the chair, giving me an action pose. Chip is really entertaining. Might have to have him on the show at some point. Mike Mignola too. Like, I talked to both of them, and they were potentially interested in being on Comic Tropes at some point. I think I could have. I haven't done any like long form interviews on Comic Tropes. I do short ones on this show, obviously, but I think I'd love to do some more deep dives here and there. You've seen him before. Chip is really, really funny. He's and talented, but like in person, very funny. Second Fudge Pavilion I saw. Second, just to be clear. What else? And here's an embarrassing story for you folks. Okay. So I had met Michael Avon Oeming earlier in the day. We had a great chat. And he goes, later, I've got a signing at Dark Horse with Brian Michael Bendis. I'd love to introduce you. I go, I'd love to meet Brian. He's done so many books that I love, especially Powers with you guys, but a lot of great books, Masterpiece these days is a really good one. So I go up and I shake his hand as Michael introduces us. And then this guy that you see here says, hey, Chris. And I go, hey, how are you? It didn't register who this was. It's Michael Allred, who's been on this show. It took me about a minute, and all of a sudden I go, oh, Michael, I am so sorry. It wasn't, I just did not expect to see you in cosplay. I thought that you were a viewer of the show. He's like, sort of I am. Anyway, yeah, exactly. Come to find out, he always shows up in cosplay. So he was really just there in cosplay. I got to meet his lovely and talented wife, Laura. He was with Randy Bowen, the sculptor. But anyway, it was nice of Michael to let me off after I consider that may have been awkward for both Michael Allred and Brian Michael Bendis. I don't know. I hope not. But they were the best. Yes. That's all I can do, folks, is share my stories with you. He's had a really interesting life and career so far. Yeah. Great guy. What else did I see? I just like to share this stuff. Oh, starting over there. Okay. So, and then I co-hosted a panel at the end of the day. And thank you to Bronze Age Nerd. He's a great YouTuber. There's a photo of me with a bunch of different people. I was invited by this guy, Zach Davison, who I've had on Comic Tropes before. He translates manga and writes. He writes Ultimate X-Men with Peach Momoko right now. And he invited me to be on this panel, which was about getting into comics in jobs aside from being a writer or artist. So we had one of the editors from Iron Circus, Valentine here, an artist of comics, but he also does a lot of like prints, so sort of more the arts and crafts side. This was our host, Brian. He does some editing and coloring and stuff. Thank you. I was just thanking you, Chris, for taking this picture. I was just thanking you. And after this show ends, if you guys are like, I need more comic book news, Bronze Age Nerds show tends to start live on Mondays right around 8 p.m. Pacific. He's another West Coaster. Zach is great. Zach has been very kind to me. This is my biggest accomplishment yet. I would have thought it might be getting nominated for an Eisner, but maybe you're right. Yeah, but you'll have a different set of stories. So I was sharing some of that. And now what I'd like to do is let me close that out. And I haven't even opened this yet. This is my backpack from the convention. And I thought I'd just show what I picked up. First of all, I'll note I did get a couple new pins. I tend to put pins on my convention backpack. 2000 AD had these free Judge Dredd helmet pins saying I am the law. I got one for Leon from Jamar Nicholas. And then the others are old, but you know, Axehead John, a Jim Mafood Shark. What else do I have here? Do a Power Bomb. There's a Zach Davison like yokai thing. Somebody gave me this cool Godzilla pin at a convention. A Tom Whalen Jet Jaguar. Did I get anything else? Oh yeah, I did. Kelly McMahon. Kelly McMahon is a wonderful graphic designer and artist, and she also makes some jewelry, like in terms of like pins and keychains. She's done some covers for books you've seen, like Radiant Black. I got this one that's based on like a Studio Ghibli little fire sprite. So I think Kelly's really talented and lovely. Oh yeah, hey Jim, you're here. Hey, as long as Jim's here and I'm showing that, I'll just remind everybody, because I want Jim to be successful here. Here's just a Jim Mafood book to be representative. Jim has a Kickstarter that's in the pre-launch phase. It's called Defective Comics Presents. What is it? Just Savage Street Vigilante, I think. Do I have that right? It's been a minute since I thought of it. But look that up on Kickstarter, Jim Mafood, and you sign up so that you could get alerted. Chris, Bronze Age Nerd, is mentioning how he also got some art from Kelly for his family. Girl Scouts is good. Girl Scouts is good. Because I don't have the Clerks one handy. That's why I didn't. or Generation X, right? And I was just pulling some stuff out. Bronze Age Nerd, who's in the chat right now and I mentioned has a show, does this charity every year, Heroes for Heroes, where he gets donations of like prints and original art from a lot of top tier pros, and it all goes to a nonprofit to support our veterans. So that's a lovely charity that's going to start next month. So definitely recommend that. But I got some comics, so let's dig into the comics. Okay, right at the top here. Look at that. I got Mike Mignola's signature. Sorry, I let the camera focus on my face. So that I got Mike's signature on these Hellboy collectible enamel pins that was a convention exclusive. Can you see them okay? There's the Kaiju metal Hellboy, and then two other classic pieces. So I got that. I think that might be the only merch I got. The rest I think is all comics. That and the pin. I'm just going to put this to the side. From Zach Davison, I picked up this. This is whoops, I'm holding it upside down. This is a manga that you can find from Dark Horse. It's by Go Tanabe, and it's an adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft classic, but done in manga format. And Zach translated that. So that's a really cool, thick book. I can't wait to dig into that. I'm not super familiar with Go Tanabe, to be honest. I picked up a funny book from Eli and the Cosmic Lion crew, how to feud the Marvel way. And it's about like a bunch of different Jack Kirby and Stan Lee arguments and stuff by all sorts of different artists. So that's a funny mini comic I can't wait to dig into. Oh, cool. A Cosmic Lion sticker. Everybody likes stickers. Oh, this is what I got from 2000 AD. From 2000 AD, they gave me this bag that I haven't even looked at yet. Let's see. Oh, who drew that Judge Dredd? I can't quite tell who drew that Judge Dredd. Maybe Mike McMahon? Anyway, this is a book I wanted to read but hadn't found anywhere. Misty. Gail Simone wrote 3 of the 4 horror stories in this and worked with just some insanely talented artists. Like, just, this stuff's gorgeous. This is a British magazine back in the day. It was sort of like a horror book aimed a little bit more at women. I'll find another good artist here just to highlight. But Misty I got, and I'm pretty excited to read that. I don't know. It's pretty. So I was, that will be fun to read. I'm looking forward to that. Are you surprised that I'm looking forward to reading comics? That's so cool. Well, it hasn't been around for a long time. It's been decades. So this is coming back. No, they just brought it back. They just brought it back. Hey, it's my friend Ben. I've known Ben for like over 25 years. And Ben and I were like drawing comics back when like there were only message boards, no social media and stuff. And these days he has a fantastic channel here where he designs original Lego creations. He's really talented. So if you're into Lego, you really might want to check his channel out. I like Ashley Wood. I wouldn't say I'm an expert yet, though. Thank you for the support. That's very kind of you. Ah, there's my signature on a Simon Beasley book. Ninja Turtles one shot, but that's a signature I got in person, so that means something to me. Did I say drawing board? I definitely meant message boards like Wizard World, Pencil Jack, digital webbing. This is what I got from Jamar Nicholas. So his book is called Leon the Extraordinary. That's published by Scholastic. That's a big deal, folks. If you can get your all ages book published by Scholastic, that's a big deal. Nice thick book. This is Leon, and he's just solving like problems with like bullies and jerks at school and at home and stuff like that. It's really good. And there's going to be a new one coming out in October. So I do recommend that. If you have kids or something and you want them to like read some wholesome comics, but like learn something where it doesn't feel like they're, you know, just telling you stuff, Leon is a pretty funny, fun book. Yeah, it comes with a it comes with both. It comes with both. Oh yeah, I read Body Count back in the day. Dude, like Simon Beasley's characters are just so incredibly jacked. And I told him, I was like, Simon, thank you for like all the entertainment. I, in middle school, loved the Lobo paramilitary special so much I would bring it with me to school and I would get in trouble for reading it because it's pretty damn like violent. Probably these days they'd just be glad a kid is reading, but back then it got me in a little trouble. Oh, I picked this book up from an old friend of mine, Rich Woodall. It's called Gods of Brutality. Rich is also from the New England, and I think I met him back in the day at like 1998 or 1999 in Chicago at Chicago Comic-Con, and I've just, you know, I've been in touch with him ever since, but this was actually the first time we've seen each other in person in like 20 years. So that's a really fun book. And the artist really draws in a Eric Larson style. It's about a rock god having rock battles down in hell. Yeah, these are just things that I picked up at the convention. I haven't even had time to read it yet. Beasley did an alt cover for Gods of Brutality? Well, that's a small world. That's a great pull. That's a great pull. Oh, yeah, everybody's disappointed in me. What else do we have? Not much more, I don't think. No, actually, a little more than I thought. I got to meet James Asmus, and he gave me Survival Street, which is a pretty funny sort of like crime book with Muppets. Not legally distinct from Muppets. It's published by Dark Horse. But James has also done a ton of Rick and Morty stuff at Oni. He's done what else? He's done a lot of cookbooks. He got into like this weird niche of doing cookbooks for things like Rick and Morty, pretty soon Marvel. He's done one for Supernatural, the TV show, where he isn't the chef, but he has like that. You have to write in like the voice of these characters. So he's gotten this weird niche, but he's really funny and charming. I've used that word a lot tonight. All right. Getting loaded up. I got to put this stuff behind the couch. Last few here, I think. Yeah. All right. Relic Hunter. Still got to read it, but I got like this nice ash can. That's exciting to read. Got that at Cosmic Lion. Aaron Lay did this variant cover for Archie, so I picked that up. I like Archie. There's Harrow County, which I got signed by Tyler Crook. I picked up the second volume of Daredevil. I read the first one, and I've read most of Chip Zdarsky's stuff, but actually not Daredevil. So I picked that up and got a signature. Got to meet Craig Rousseau, another guy that I've been following for ages, another New Englander. He did this book, Young Hellboy, so that's right up my alley. He's a really talented artist. Had a nice conversation with writer Mark Russell and got his book called My Bad, which is definitely a parody of like Justice League superheroes. His Batman, for instance, is fantastic. His Batman archetype is the chandelier, heir to a massive lamp fortune, and everything is chandelier themed. And then the last thing, I got to meet Dan Parent. So I got a copy of his book, Archie, The Decision, which just came out, written by Tom King. Archie finally makes a decision between Betty and Veronica. So, yeah, that is everything I picked up. It was a treat. I had a good time. I would just say, I really wish that they had a few more comic book vendors. That would have been really nice. They had good panels. They had plenty of arts and crafts. They had more than enough fudge. But anyway, great artist alley. Great artist alley. Duncan Fegredo definitely had a great Hellboy run. You know who I miss in comics? I just haven't seen him do anything in a while, but maybe I'm just missing it. Guy Davis. Love Guy Davis. Guy Davis did BPRD for a very long time. Great artist. Great artist. Oh, is it? Okay, maybe so. No. Yeah, Tom King wrote an Archie book. It just came out like about 2 weeks ago. Really, really cool. What else do I have to present here? How about we'll get into some news, and then we'll bring on Tom Scioli in a little bit when he becomes available. Again, that'll probably be closer to well, my time it's 5, and it'll probably be around 5:45. Oh, Guy Davis works in Hollywood now. Well, good for him. I didn't go over to see who that was there, but they had a lot. We had a falling out, but he's been designing monsters for Del Toro. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I have not seen that news. Destin Daniel Cretton to direct Spider-Man 4. I'd be for it. I've said that I think that Shang-Chi was one of the better, arguably best movies of Phase 4. Honolulu Con this past Friday, and it was also light on comic vendors. I did talk to Gail Simone for a few minutes. That's awesome. I would really... Oh, okay, hold on. I'll come to that. I'd love to interview Gail. She's so talented. writing so many books right now. Really, really cool. Oh, here's some names. And this is why you might want to check out Bronze Age Nerd's show after mine, because he experienced a few different things. So he's listing some of the people that were there. Katie Sackhoff, Hayden Christensen, Simon Pegg, Charlie Cox, Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum, Patton Oswalt, and many more. Yes. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I think I will go again, especially if I was invited to a panel. If I was invited to a panel, like, which gave me a badge, yes, I would do that. We have talked before about potentially doing one, and it's really just a matter of schedules lining up. But yeah. All right. What was I going to add? I was going to add the news. Share screen, window. All right. We know what's coming up. We've even talked about some of this. Yes, we were going to do the Rose City Comic Con. Okay. As long as we were just talking, a bunch of us, about this Spider-Man 4 news. So let's talk about some DCU news. By the way, has Josh Brolin played more comic book characters than Chris Evans, or the same amount? Because let me think real quick. He's played Cable, Thanos, Jonah Hex, Agent K from Men in Black, whatever the main character was from Old Boy. Old Boy is a manga. And then he did one more, didn't he? What am I not thinking of? It's not coming to me. And then Chris Evans has done Human Torch, Captain America, the lead from Snowpiercer, Casey Jones in a TMNT animated movie, Scott Pilgrim, and The Losers. So that's definitely 6. Oh, yes, Sin City. Thanks, everybody. That means they're tied, if I'm getting it right. That means they're tied. 6 comic book characters each. So why am I talking about it? Well, Hollywood insider Jeff Snyder reported, and a lot of people picked up on it, that Josh Brolin has been offered the role of Hal Jordan for that HBO series called Lanterns, which they say is like set on Earth and involves a pair of Green Lanterns investigating some sort of cosmic crime. Interesting. They said that he has not necessarily accepted, but it has been offered to him. That's definitely older than I would have thought for Hal Jordan, but I guess that might make sense if they're thinking that maybe they'll make Jon Stewart like a younger main Green Lantern, and Hal Jordan a more experienced one that isn't like in the movies as much. I don't know. Jeff Snyder then posted that if Brolin passes, Warner Brothers' next choices are Matthew McConaughey and Ewan McGregor. So I definitely feel like they're going for, those guys are all within like about 3 years of each other. Well, it's an HBO series, and I don't think Tom Cruise will do that. Tom Cruise is still one of the few remaining A-list movie stars. There's not a lot of A-list movie stars anymore, but I would say that Tom Cruise is still one. Yeah. I think that might be sort of what they're thinking if this rumor is true, doing Lanterns as sort of a buddy cop type thing. You heard Brolin already turned it down. On to Matthew McConaughey and Ewan McGregor, according to this. Snyder also said that James Gunn met with Stephen Williams, and he's directed a lot of different shows, Watchmen, Lost, Westworld, Walking Dead, to direct the Lanterns pilot episode. I believe that that's probably a real thing, not just like a rumor. And then another rumor is that James Gunn, he's one of the co-heads of the DCU, that he wants Luca Guadagnino, I can't pronounce his name, I never can, the guy that directed Challengers, to direct a Sergeant Rock movie. That's a good idea. DC has a lot of stuff besides just superheroes. They could do Blackhawks, they could do a good Jonah Hex, They could do Sergeant Rock. So there's like a lot of like characters. They could do a Haunted Tank movie. Carl Urban could get in. Yeah. Oh man, John Hamm. If they're looking for like a more experienced type guy, John Hamm would actually be a great choice. That would be a great choice. Space Cabbie. Hey, I used to joke about Lady Cop, and then Tom King definitely did her justice in Danger Street. That was really cool. Unknown Soldier, that could be so cool. You know, I think that they could like almost have like a small World War II shared universe if they really wanted to. It could be cool. Unknown Soldier, maybe bring in Haunted Tank, but definitely Blackhawks and Sergeant Rock could be really cool. IDW has had a bunch of little bits of news this week, so let me jump into that. So IDW was said that they were going to publish a second American Girl graphic novel. They put one out this past year, and there was another one scheduled, but now apparently if you go to the solicitation for it on Amazon, they've moved the date from 2025 to 2079. And that's something Amazon does if the book basically has been not completely canceled, but probably canceled. What else? My Little Pony. That's been a big franchise for IDW. That's been successful. They had this book called The Storm of Zephyr Heights, okay? Came out in September. It's the only My Little Pony they did that month, and it was regular length, $3.99. But now issues 2 and 3 are both double size for $6.99, and they're solicited for October and November. They also have multiple artists. That sounds like they might be trying to wrap up their last book before the end of the year to like double it up all of a sudden, which is the kind of stuff that they were doing when they were about to lose the rights to things like Transformers and G.I. Joe. They started putting out specials and like sort of rushing it out before the year cut off. So they might have lost that license. But let's talk about some other stuff. They're a publicly traded company, I guess, IDW Holdings. They posted that they lost $901,000 for quarter 2 of 2024. However, sales were actually up 4% from the last quarter to $5.7 million. It's weird. IDW is definitely selling stuff like Ninja Turtles and Godzilla and My Little Pony and various other things. They're selling it really, really well. But it seems like they might, I don't know. I don't understand their finances actually, so I'm not even going to speculate. I just don't understand what's going on. But in some good news, oh, dude, IDW's Beneath the Trees, one of the best books last year, no question. Great, great book. Yeah, I just wanted to say, though, and this is from Bleeding Cool, but it's probably true. Bobby Curnow apparently has been hired back to IDW. He used to work there. He's been hired as the new editor-in-chief, and they did need somebody to replace Jamie S. Rich, who went and started one of his own comic publishers. We talked about that about 2 weeks ago. Bobby Curnow worked his way up like editor, executive editor, group editor. He was the group editor of Ninja Turtles through pushing out Last Ronin, and that's been probably IDW's biggest thing. So, oh yeah, that's right, Sonic. I do tend to forget about Sonic, but I know Sonic's popular. I've seen the Sonic movies. They're pretty fun. Let's go on. This is like a frustrating story, but with a bit of a happy ending to it. A community like coming together to help a local comic shop. So basically, there's a place in Belmont, North Carolina called Doc's Basement, and it sells comics and toys and stuff like this. It was vandalized with graffiti. I've blurted out here. It was a pretty bad racial slur. pretty bad. That's like way understating it. It's the worst. It's the worst. What happened? Well, police apprehended 3 juveniles. That's how they described them. And the owner here, Sam Wilcox, known as Doc, said he had just given them some free comics and some water. And then they went out into the back alleyway and, like, with some paint, put a racial slur on the wall. But the whole community, like, instantly, like, jumped into action to take care of this. The police and the fire department just sort of volunteered some of their time to start cleaning it, as well as, like, apparently just locals that lived there. The police blocked the slur with a box truck until it could all get cleaned up. And so that was just really nice. The whole community, like, really came together. And apparently this is, like, you know, a beloved store, and people wanted to make it right ASAP. So good. If you're in New York this year for New York Comic Con, you may want to check this out. Kodansha is a huge publisher. I think technically the biggest manga publisher in Japan, and they're having a pop-up. But you know what? I'll come back to the news in a minute because we have a guest tonight, and I don't want to keep him waiting. Folks, I talked about this earlier. An artist and a writer that I've enjoyed. Boy, I don't want to say how long. He's been working in comics for a while. He's worked for Image and IDW and all sorts of publishers. He's done biographies of guys like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, both really interesting books. And he's done totally batshit crazy bonkers stuff like his Transformers versus G.I. Joe book. Just insane. You guys probably know him. Tom Scioli, I'm going to bring on. Tom, how are you today, sir?
Hey, how's it going?
Can you hear me okay? Because I can hear you.
I can hear you great. Yeah, you're loud and clear.
I know that we didn't like sort of have time to chat like before, so I hope that this is cool that I'm just, boom, bringing you on in the middle of the show, but I do appreciate your time. I do. Tom, I've been reading your books since Godland was the first one that I read by you, and you've done so many different, I want to say sort of genres and styles with your art. Like, it seems like you really take the time to experiment. How much of that is intentional, and how much is that just sort of an evolution of an artist learning? Like, how
I think
is that?
I think it's all of that. It's there's certainly intent. I try to approach each project, fresh, and come up with like the best possible approach that works best for that subject matter. But also, like, I think it's just a matter of time. Like, I've been doing this for so long, and that kind of like evolution of an artist, it's just sort of a natural thing. Like, I've observed it, as a fan of other people, and I've kind of lived it. And it's like, yeah, that does kind of happen. You do kind of just explore different directions and end up different places, and sometimes end up places, you didn't even expect to go.
Right. Let me just ask a couple questions. I want to talk about Godzilla. I'm a big Godzilla fan, but I do have a couple questions since I've got a few minutes of your time. I really liked your Jack Kirby and Stan Lee biographies. As somebody that's like read a lot of their history, I thought you hit like all the important points, but there's so much to somebody's life. I'm sure that it felt like you were having to make tough decisions of stuff to like not include. But my question really is, like, when you're doing a book like this, is it at all hard to sort of figure out like when you can tell a scene and when you're just telling like an individual illustration of a moment? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was something that always intrigued me. As like a student of Jack Kirby and stuff, I'd see something like the New Gods, like issue 7, The Pact, and he again, like you're describing, he would sort of compress. He'd give certain moments or certain beats this like really short shrift, and then he'd sort of lavish more attention on other ones. And I was always like baffled. Like, he seems to choose the exact ones. How does he know? And then you'd compare that to like another thing he did, like Commandy or something, where it was almost like moment by moment. So there wasn't, you know, so you could see like the two different approaches.
Yeah.
And it just like, for me, it just, and maybe it was the same for Jack, you just reach a point where it's just almost your intuition. Like it just sort of makes sense. Like, okay, I think I've done it. And you just, as time goes on, you just trust you trust your gut more and more.
Do you feel that you like got to explore stuff artistically in this, or were you feeling like you were mostly flexing your writing muscles when you're telling like a biography?
Yeah, I mean the Stan Lee one really, I felt like I was like flexing sort of like a comic muscle. Like I was
Mm.
really very experimental with that one compared to like a lot of the stuff I've done. I just found these like different approaches to like optimize, you know, laying out a story and telling a story visually. And I'm not sure exactly why it ended up with that particular project. It just, you know, I just was in that mode, and just kind of, you know, discovered a new presentation. Like if you compare it to the Jack Kirby one, the Jack Kirby one was very sort of traditional. It was you know, that it had
There
sort of
was a difference,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, detailed
Yeah,
illustrations and stuff, but kind of like laid out almost like a classic 60s Marvel comic or something, with captions, dialogue. The Stan Lee one was like all kinds of things, you know, typography, and, you know,
I
lots
wonder
of
if some of
air.
that is literally the the subject matter that you're studying sort of influencing what kind of a story would be told. I mean, maybe that just like is what it dictates. You know, Jack Kirby was an artistic storyteller, and Stan was a wordy guy. He just talked in a weird way.
Yeah, it seemed to work out that way. Like Jack Kirby spent a lot of time at a drawing board, and there was a lot of, you know, there's a lot of possibilities there, showing the you know, the drawing board. But with Stan, it was a little more of a challenge, and so Stan, you know, he was a wordsmith, so you know, his sort of typewriter and things, you know, take center stage.
It occurs to me that I'm curious if you could compare the biographies to another thing you did that was fictional. Uh, I'm talking Fantastic Four Grand Design, where you're again like trying to summarize, you know, a life essentially. Like, what kind of challenges did that bring when you're trying to summarize so many stories?
Yeah, I do think of those three works as sort of like a trio, as a triptych. You sort of have Stan Lee over here, Jack Kirby over here, and then like them meeting in the middle with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, yeah. There's just so much you have to leave out. There's so much you have to leave out. And once I made peace with that and was like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to get every single thing I want to get into this. So that's out of the way. You know, I've mourned that. So now let me just, you know, double down and just do this thing. You know, just you know, get what I can get in there.
You know what I think though is, having read these books, it still feels like there's a structure to them. I'm just a big fan of structure. You know, doesn't always have to be 3 acts, but like, you know, I want a character arc in a sense, and it feels like you did like accomplish that, which I don't know how you can take all those moments and do it. What was the research part like for these? Like how much like scraps of paper or file folders, like how much is going on there?
Yeah, it was all over the place. It was like, you know, my whole living room. There's just like, you know, stuff all over the place. But I think it's part of the fact that it wasn't just sort of episodic. It wasn't like, oh, here's an issue of this part of Kirby's life, and here's an issue of the next part. It was, you know, planned as a, you know, big complete project. And I'm talking to
Mm,
editors and publishers, and then even the pitching process, you know, talking, you know, to like my agent and stuff. There's all these steps along the way where you have to come up with like, okay, here's the whole thing. It's a
yeah.
very like sort of blurry, incomplete version of the whole thing, but here's the whole thing. And then a little bit after that, you got to present the whole thing again, but this time it's a little more in focus, a little more refined. So you know, you're thinking in that big picture from day one. So, you know, when it comes time to actually start drawing the comic, it's in even clearer focus. But in the case of the Jack Kirby one, it there wasn't a ton of like moving the pieces around and stuff, but with the Stan Lee, there was a lot of like, and I have it all, you know, on my iPad and stuff, so I can like, okay, this page might work better down here, and then this setting might work over here, because you're kind of balancing between presenting like a somewhat chronological story, but then you're also presenting ideas, so it's like, okay, do you group it by chronology, or do you group it by, you know, idea or you know, theme or moment that you're presenting?
Right. Boy, that sounds like an interesting challenge to like, you know, because they both had long lives. Wish Jack Kirby's was longer, but like, yeah, really, really interesting. Suppose, let me just give you a quick hypothetical. Suppose these were like the best-selling comics, like Last Ronin manga. What? Forget all that. No, it's all about I am Jack, I am Stan, and like the publisher was like, Tom, we need one more. Who would be it? Who would be the next person you would be willing to devote, like, you know, basically a year of your life to telling their story? Is there anybody?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. There, I mean, I before I started the Stan Lee one, I did consider an Otto Binder book. So Otto Binder, at least at one point, I was, and again, it was because I had finished the Jack Kirby book, and I thought, okay, how about, you know, a writer? Let me focus on a writer. And also, I liked, okay, Jack Kirby's cool because he's super well known in some circles, but then he's also kind of an obscure figure, you know, in sort of a larger sense. So I thought, okay, what if I pick somebody like more obscure, like, you know, and somebody who was in, you know, but you know, it's maybe like less obscure is the better way to go than to go like more obscure. But he was one. I mean,
I wouldn't have been surprised if you're like, Steve Ditko is the natural next choice or something, but you know,
yeah. Ditko does seem like a natural. It's just like, how do you do that? How do you write a book about Steve Ditko? Like, there's so little to go on.
There's so little. I'm actually doing an episode right now on my show, Comic Tropes, about what artists thought about the Marvel method, like what they actually had to say. And doing the research for what Steve Ditko had to say, it's a deep dive where you have to like read all of his self-published comics to read his essays, or find letters that fans have posted, because he didn't do interviews and conventions. But that's part of why I'd love to see something like about his life one day. We'll see.
Yeah, it would be an interesting challenge. Super difficult, but I'd be up to that challenge if it were, you know, presented to me. But you know, I get to choose. You know,
I'm glad.
Yeah, all these names.
Oh yeah, no, just highlighting a few, just trying to interact. Lots of great suggestions, folks. I appreciate that.
For sure.
And we can seg from like this probably to Godzilla, since it's both IDW. But how in the world did you ever get this approved by like the licensee? Because this book was bonkers. If you haven't read it, folks, I'm not here to spoil the story, but let's just say crazy stuff happens to your favorite characters. And was that any sort of a challenge, or was it like they were just like, cool, that's a fresh take on things?
I'd say, I mean, there were a lot of factors. I think, you know, right place, right time was one of them, because IDW had the license for a while by that point. They'd done a lot of things, and they'd sort of shown that they were sort of good stewards of the license. So it was in sort of a life cycle where, you know, the licensor was sort of, and the licensee were both ready to like just try some new things, you know, like there wasn't so much on the line. So that was a nice time to come in, and that was kind of exactly, you know, what they were looking for, was something different. Now the approval process was, you know, kind of difficult, and they'd be sort of sold on it, and then you know, I'd present something to them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they wouldn't be as sold. So it was you know, some back and forth. There was a little bit of you know, uncertainty in the beginning. I kind of thought like, oh, at any moment they could pull the plug, but they never did. They never pulled the plug. Yeah. I was able to tell the entire story I wanted to tell.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I'm glad you did. I grew up being a big fan of both of these. I was, and you know, I love say Larry Hama, love his G.I. Joe, just love it. But this was like, it felt like you were literally somehow taking the toys out of the toy box and just like the most imaginative kid in the world, like the story he would come up with if he had all the toys all at once. It was great. Just awesome. Was it fun or was it tough?
It was both. I mean, it was some of the most fun I've had in my life. Like it was so, I was almost euphoric from it. And you could probably imagine, like, if you were in that position where it's like, I can't believe this thing that I, was super into when I was little. And, I can't believe, like, it feels like I've made it to like the other side of the TV screen, or like, the other side of the comic. Like, I can't believe I'm the one doing this. And yeah, just getting to, do whatever I want with it. It was an amazing experience, but yeah, super difficult. I worked, insane hours on it because I felt like it was this tremendous opportunity, this tremendous responsibility. And then on top of that, it's these two massive casts. So
it was
that
so
are
big
combined. Yeah. So it's like there was just so many things to keep track of. Sure.
Did you just sort of make a decision like, these are going to be my main characters and like I'll just throw as many others as I can in it? Or did you, I don't know, or am I totally off base with an approach like that?
I had a game plan, but I also gave myself the leeway to, abandon the game plan at any time, or, change it up, or, so, I mean, and I'd have sort of multiple game plans. So maybe I'd, bounce back and forth between a couple. But yeah, I mean, there were certain characters that I was gravitated to, and they happened to be characters for the most part that were, major parts, parts that like the fans would want to see. So, I did gravitate towards Snake Eyes and Optimus Prime, but then I also really gravitated towards Dr. Venom, who was a super obscure character. Now, G.I. Joe diehards are probably like super into him, but yeah, he never, like, I didn't know he existed.
He didn't have like a figure. He was
no
like a
figure. He
comics
wasn't on the
character
cartoon.
that was really important. But yeah.
I really fell in love with his character as I was going deep into like the Larry Hama comics, like in order to make this comic. And I'm like, this guy's amazing. This is like an amazing villain.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for doing that. Like I say, I started reading like Godland, and you look back and it was like 37 issues. That was like a really big chunk of time you were working on that book. And then you did a few other things, and you had a small break in like your comics. There's like a few years there where you didn't have comics coming out. Was that what kind of stuff were you doing at that point? I've never understood.
Yeah, where was that break? I mean, I don't remember a break, but I guess
you're right. I should have had like the specifics of the year in front of me. I mean, give me a moment.
Yeah.
That's terrible interviewing folks. You should always be prepared.
Sometimes there's like a year in between things that feels like an eternity to me. Like there was kind of a year between when I finished Transformers versus G.I. Joe and then when I started doing Superpowers. It was maybe not quite a year, but it felt like this eternity of like, oh, wow, I thought I was going to have something ready to go, and I'm kind of, in midair.
I guess I'm thinking of, I've got a specific. 2012 was like basically Godland had ended, and you'd done some other stuff. But then the next thing, when I like look at all your credits, and it might be a little off, was American Barbarian in 2015. So that's sort of like that. That's sort of what I'm talking about. It's like about a 3-year gap is what I was just kind of wondering.
I mean, the American Barbarian came out from Ad House, I think in like 2012 or 2013. Like it came out like in between those, and then it was reprinted or reissued in like a new thing at IDW in 2015. So maybe that, but I guess there was a little bit of a gap in there, just in that, I didn't have like a big kind of like job lined up at some point. I think it was after American Barbarian, but before Transformers versus G.I. Joe. I was really struggling to get something go. Like I thought like, okay, I got these. So I did a comic called Satan Soldier. Or no, I did a comic called Final Frontier after American Barbarian. It was kind of like a
Right.
similar approach, different kind of story, and sort of like a superhero universe kind of thing. And I wasn't able to find a publisher for that. I self-published like a small run of it.
Really?
And then I and then I did Satan Soldier, which I was super proud of. I felt like was like a pretty big breakthrough. But again, couldn't find a publisher for that. I had sort of self-published some of the issues and then published the whole thing like digitally online. And I just couldn't get a publisher for that. And then I was trying sort of the next thing. And I just was like, oh man, how many like graphic novels am I going to have to make before somebody like wants to publish them? And then I just kind of, threw my hands in the air. And then I decided like, okay, I'm going to approach things completely differently. I quit my day job. In spite of the fact that I had done 2 graphic novels that I was unable to find a home for, and quit my day job. But I was like, okay, I'm going to do this comics thing by the book. I was doing it my own way, where I'd just come up with some wacky idea and do it and like hope somebody would publish it. That wasn't working. So I'm like, I'm going to just go down the list and look at the submission guidelines and things like that. And so then I followed the submission guidelines of all the different companies. Most of the submission guidelines were, we don't accept submissions, but IDW's was, submit to our website or whatever here. And I did that. And then, before long, I was talking to John Barber and then the Transformers versus G.I. Joe.
I'm so glad that happened. It's wild. Do you think like that was 10 years ago? Do you think if like that happened today, that not that it's easy, but do you think that like crowdfunding could have been a way to put those books out a little more easily if like publishers just weren't biting initially? Or do you think that it would still just be like, no, I gotta, get an actual publisher for this?
Yeah, crowdfunding was as much of an option back then as it is now. It's just I was like a little more averse to it. Like it just seemed so impossible and scary, and the risk of failure. Like if it failed, it would be this like embarrassment. Like again, it was where now it's like I don't care. Fine, whatever. So if
it's become normalized.
I went back in a time machine. Exactly. And I've sort of come around to it too. So because I mean there were plenty of people doing it back then. I don't know why it took me. Why it took me, and I was pretty close. Like I was ready to crowdfund Final Frontier before I got Transformers versus G.I. Joe, and then I was like, okay, I can sort of get busy on this thing.
Because I'd want to read all of these. So let's transition into your new project. You're doing a Godzilla book. It's definitely a Tom Godzilla book as compared to just the Godzilla book. IDW has actually been like kind of experimenting with what you can do with Godzilla. But who approached who? Like, what was the impetus for telling a Godzilla story mixed with like sort of classic literature?
Yeah, I mean, I approached them. I've just been wanting to do a Godzilla comic for a really long time, and so it's just been, I talked to them about a lot of different things, and GoBots was one of the things that came out of it too. Like I did a GoBots thing with them, but sort of ongoing stuff. But like Godzilla was like a big one for me, and it was just a matter of like getting the right story, the right thing, and so. After a couple years actually of sort of back and forth with them and stuff, it was just the whole like public domain thing was kind of on everybody's mind. Like everybody seemed to be talking like because there, it was 2024 was going to be like a big year for public domain, and so it just was like a natural place that the conversation went. And then it was kind of like, oh, if you did like a Godzilla with like public domain, what would that be? And I just. The Godzilla versus Gatsby just like came to me immediately, even though Gatsby came into the public domain like a few years prior, but it was like I don't know, something about it, like the G, but, two G's.
Great Gatsby isn't the same as like Popeye and Superman or Mickey Mouse.
Right.
Like nobody's like, finally, my sci-fi Great Gatsby book will come true. I love how crazy this is. Yeah, folks. Tom is doing a book called Godzilla Monster Piece Theater that utilizes characters from everything from like H.G. Wells to F. Scott Fitzgerald. Oh, what about the approval process there compared to like an approval process with things like GoBots and Transformers and G.I. Joe? Similar? Different? just curious. I mean, very different companies.
Yeah, I mean, just real fast with all of the, like the Transformers versus GI Joe was like sort of a longer approval. I think those were sort of more valuable properties. GoBots was almost instant. GoBots, they were like, we have like 0 plans for the GoBots, so yeah, go crazy, have fun. And then
just to be clear, folks,
yeah,
you have to put stuff out if you want to keep your trademark and stuff. So sometimes you can find that niche, and you threaded that needle with GoBots.
And then with Godzilla, they were like this particular pitch with Godzilla and Gatsby. They were so on board. It was like, yeah, it was they were
Really?
there
That's
was
so
like
cool.
yeah, it sailed right through.
That's so cool. So what was your introduction to Godzilla? Like, did like watching the movies on TV? Did you see it in the theater at a certain point? Like, what was your? Do you have any recollection of what you first saw? Maybe for Godzilla?
Yeah, it's such an early thing, like for me. So I it's probably like 2 or something, maybe 1 or 3 or something. But so it's hard to play. Like, yeah, the movies were on TV. The big one that I remember is the Saturday morning cartoon. There was a Saturday morning cartoon that went from like the late 70s to the early 80s, and that was kind of like my idea of what Godzilla was, And then and then the movies were in the mix too, but the movies kind of like, my attention span wasn't there as a kid. Like, it was cool, but you'd kind of like run in the room and, okay, there's Godzilla doing something. You run out of the room. But like the cartoon was like right on my level. And I liked that it was like Godzilla would roar and be grouchy and scary, but was also like worked for people. Like they'd they'd get into trouble, they'd press a button, and then Godzilla would be there to help. So I liked that. So I think it was probably that. Yeah, Godzuki, an important part. Yeah.
So he was a big part of the show. Yeah, like the cute.
Yeah, he's part of this theme song. Big part of the theme song.
And Godzuki.
Yeah,
yes, I remember.
It slows down for Godzuki.
Do you have a favorite Godzilla movie? Not that this is what you're going for in your comic, but I'm just curious. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I mean they're all so great. I mean, for the longest time it was Shin Godzilla was the one I'd say. Yeah. But like Godzilla -1, like, I don't know, like I really loved that one too.
I know. Those are like, and then you don't want to disrespect the original because it really
the original
is super effective. It stands the test of time.
It really does.
They got a little silly quickly, but like that first one is great. I also have a weak spot for Final Wars, where you're just throwing all the monsters together, and it's like just one of the really fun, crazy ones that doesn't really slow down. But like, for your Godzilla book, is there anything in previous Godzilla, like tonally, that you're going for, or is this different than what we've seen before? Yeah, it's fine either way. I'm just curious.
This is like a classic Godzilla story. Like this, it's sort of as many crazy things happen and little detours that goes on. It really adheres to the classic Godzilla structure. I mean, I'd say the Godzilla movie that it's closest to is probably the Godzilla versus Mothra.
Okay.
If you remember that one, and that one
definitely do.
Was it's and that one was full color. It might have even been the first color Godzilla movie, but it was had
I think
all
the
those
first color one may have been versus Kong, and then I think.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But it's got the cheesiness and stuff. But then the main story is actually kind of credible. It's kind of it's kind of like the stuff that the people are doing is kind of serious. I mean, but there's a ton of weird stuff going on too. So that might be the closest.
They were definitely experimenting back then, and that's kind of the fun of it. Like this was Godzilla like 5-6 years in, not Godzilla 85 years in. This is and by the way, are we seeing a Godzilla toy taped to your wall? Is that what you've got over your shoulder there? Okay. What's he doing? Is he just making sure that you don't like making sure that you don't make a mistake?
There's a big hole in this brick wall, and so Godzilla kind of fills it nicely.
Okay, that's awesome, dude. Oh man. So about how many issues is this? Has that been announced?
Yeah, it's 3 issues, 40 pages each. So pretty substantial. Yeah.
That is substantial. That'll be a big book to put on the shelf eventually. Man, and that's just so cool. I love it. I love it, Tom. But thinking just a little bit more of like some of the stuff you've done. Hold on, I'm bad at names, so I'm just stumbling. Which man? Which man, right?
Yeah, that was my
Is more of
crowdfunded
that
book.
coming, or is that like done?
That's done. I mean, it was like a done in one. It was actually kind of like a fun thing for me to do between jobs. Like I didn't have Godzilla lined up yet. I had just finished the Jack Kirby's Star Warriors that I did for Image, and I was like, okay, I don't have a job lined up yet, so let me test out crowdfunding. You know, like we were talking about. I'm like, let me test it out, and Witchman felt like, okay, this would be a cool one to test it out, and then I did it, and then by the time it was over, I had gotten Godzilla, so I was definitely ready, to move on to the next thing immediately.
You have like, you know so much about comics in your time at this point, Tom. I mean, you've done self-publishing, you've done crowdfunding, you've done online, like you've done through various publishers from like mainstream to indie. It's really interesting. At this point, do you have like a preference for what you like to do, or should we just expect the unexpected?
I mean, the doing a book with sort of like a traditional book publisher is kind of that's like optimal in terms of pay and stuff like that.
Okay.
But like I'm in it for the fun, and some of these projects are like, it's just so much fun, and I do love like the traditional comics world too. Like that's really what I came out of. That was like what I'd always envisioned. I never really envisioned sort of being like a I don't know, graphic novelist, or like I always envisioned just being like a comic book guy. But yeah, it's sort of all these years later, that's where I found myself. So I love all those formats, and the crowdfunding is like that was pretty exciting. Like it's a ton of freedom. So we'll see where the next thing is.
That's fair. So for my audience, like, what are their marching orders for Godzilla Monsterpiece Theater? Like, do you know what the cutoff dates are for ordering like the future issues or anything?
Yeah, the final order cutoff for issue 1 is next Monday. So if you want a copy and you have a comics retailer that you use, that you have a relationship with, let them know, before next Monday, because they're going to want to know how many of these things should I order, for the shop. So, let them know you are interested, because that kind of stuff does matter, especially in this sort of comic book world. Yeah.
And folks, like, if I haven't made this clear before, I think we've talked about it with some other guests, but if you order a comic from your local comic shop, they are very happy to place that order. They know that they will be selling it. It's very easy. So I hope people do. I'm going to definitely be getting it. I've already told my store to order it. I don't know how to get variants, but I'm hoping for the Jim Mahfood variant. We'll see.
Yeah, he's been doing some nice,
Are there any other variants aside from Jim that you got on
this? There's another Jim. There's also a Jim Rugg variant for issue 1.
Yes.
So.
Yes, right. I was talking about Jim Mahfood because I do a show with him, but you're right. Jim Rugg is also doing stuff. Man, this might be a book personally that I end up getting like 2 or 3 copies of, and I don't do that anymore since the 90s, but these are all artists that I like. How dare you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to hold it against you.
What else should my viewers do if they want to see more from you? Where should they follow you?
I have a YouTube channel, The Total Recall Show, where we just talk about all kinds of general pop culture stuff, and then comics also. Just the most recent episode, we were talking about the novel, The Great Gatsby. It's like, why not talk about the novel? And it was kind of fun.
Idea.
Yeah. We get literary sometimes.
Nothing wrong with being a little highbrow here. This is
sure.
Hey, wouldn't it be great in a way to like hear a story down the road that your Godzilla comic brought somebody to discovering like F. Scott Fitzgerald or H.G. Wells or Bram Stoker. That would be awesome.
Yeah, stranger things can happen, and I'm sure like similar stuff has happened for you. I mean, I know like you read some Alan Moore comic or whatever, and then they're referencing some like obscure weird thing that you think he just made up, and then it's like, oh wait, that's that's an actual thing. That's an actual book.
Hey, I appreciate your time, Tom. Thank you very much for letting me stumble through. Sorry I was having trouble with some names tonight. I need a little more caffeine, but thank you so much for your time. Super, super wishing you the best of success with this book. I think it's an awesome idea. I'm very excited for it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and yeah, continued success with your show. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay, you too. I'll see you.
Thank you. Oh my God, that was a treat for me, folks. That was a treat for me. I'm a big fan of Tom's. I just happen to have these two nearby, but I really do recommend his Jack Kirby biography in particular. That was really, really good. I think that the Godzilla book sounds like a blast. Sounds like a blast. We're going to go back to news, but bear with me. I need to pull something up real quick. I need to pull something up for news. Darn. I was hoping that wasn't accurate. Bear with me a minute. I'm seeing it reported. Yeah. Darn. John Cassaday has apparently passed away, folks. I'm really sorry to have to bring some sad news there. Darn. I don't have any more details on what has happened, but I've talked before on my shows about how big a fan I am of John Cassaday from like The Authority was one of my personal favorites. I love that book, but Astonishing X-Men, Star Wars, just a brilliant artist. And I think that some of us were a little worried because some of his variant covers that he did in the last year kind of looked different. So I don't know exactly what's happened here, but that's obviously comic book related, and we are talking about news. So I wanted to put that out there because I'm seeing it come from a number of professionals, including I see here Rob Liefeld is posting about it, and I'm seeing folks from like CBR post about it and stuff like that. Darn it. Well, I don't have any more details than that, so that's really that's frustrating. Darn it. Well, what I'll just say is, support the artists that you love while they're with us, and whenever you have the opportunity, let them know how much their work means to you, because that's pretty important stuff. John Cassaday is brilliant. I've got some other news that I'm going to move on to since I don't have any further details. Maybe I'll have some more to talk about next week, and I can be prepared and like have something a bit more eloquent to say about such a interesting artist. But yeah. Okay. I'm going to bring back up the news where I was at. We'll do that, and then we'll do some comic book reviews too. So I was starting to say, before we paused to do an interview with Tom, and that was awesome to talk to him, by the way. That was a real treat. Kodansha, humongous manga publisher, are going to be set up with a store of sorts in New York throughout all of October. All right, maybe I'm going too fast. Bear with me, because I'm seeing a lot of people want to say things. So let me pause and I'll, because there's a delay. But yeah, yeah, I saw that. It was sad that we lost James Earl Jones, but that one wasn't as big a surprise. He was up there in years. Yeah, I'm glad that you got to know him too. I just wanted to give some room, some breathing room, I guess. When there's the delay between what I'm doing live and then what you guys are seeing live just a little bit later, sometimes it creates that disconnect. And I want to give you guys room to absorb. That's some pretty heady news to lose a really talented artist like that. That's really tough. But I think it's cool to now continue. I will go back. Boy, this will be the third time I'm starting this piece of news. That's a little funny just in and of itself. All right. So, what is this? October. They're setting up a store in New York, and it's going to overlap with New York Comic Con. So, even if you're not a New York resident, you might be going to the Comic Con. I'm going for a day. I'm excited about that. So here's what it is. It's called Kodansha House, where manga meets. They came up with that. That's an interesting translation. So opens October 4th down in Soho, New York City. They call it an immersive pop-up. It's located on 45 Grand Street, open from Wednesdays through Sundays. So Monday, Tuesday, no. Otherwise, 12 to 9. And it runs through the entire month of October. Aside from selling their manga, they're going to have, and by the way, they did stuff like Attack on Titan and Akira, some pretty big books. There's going to be panels. They're going to have trivia nights. I would love to have been able to go to that, but I'm on the other coast. And photo ops, including one where they've got a replica of Kaneda's bike from Akira and Kaneda's jacket, and you can put that on, sit on the bike, and they've got a backdrop of from the movie so that you can look like you're doing the Akira bike slide. That's a pretty good photo op, if nothing else. If nothing else, that's pretty awesome. As long as I'm talking about manga, I'm going to quickly talk about Orange Incorporated. And I want to make it clear, Orange Incorporated, because there's another company called Orange that makes manga. This is Orange Incorporated. And they said that they're going to use AI to translate manga. I don't know how I feel about that. So they're a startup. They received $20 million in their round one funding this year. And when they were starting, they said, hey, this is going to be an app and we're going to use AI to translate. Okay. So they've launched a venture. It's called Imaki. And that's like a pun. I forget the exact word. I think it's Imaki with a K, which is like the name for like those long scrolls that have art on it, which you could argue was sort of a precursor to sequential storytelling manga. Anyway, Imaki. And on it, you don't subscribe like you do on, say, Shonen Jump Plus or anything like that. Instead, they just sell whole volumes of manga. And you can like read a few pages at first. So, while they initially touted themselves as an AI company, that obviously did not go over too well with most fans because we know that AI can translate a word, but it doesn't always get the meaning. So they've sort of backtracked. They did a press release this week, and it says, to maintain the integrity of the original works and build trust with readers, artists and publishers over time, build trust with all of them, no more than 10% of the content on Imaki will be translated using AI support at launch. What's that mean at launch? As the team continues to evaluate and refine its approach for the future. So in other words, they're probably going to use AI and then just have people proofread it, which I guess I can understand. Manga is in a tricky spot, as a business, just as a business. And that's because worldwide, manga is so popular right now. Which means if you don't get to market first with a localized translation for, English, Spanish, French, whatever, fans are going to do it. It's pirated and that's illegal and they'll work to shut that down, but it's still going to happen and you're going to be losing money. So as a business, there's a huge motivation to get it done as quickly as possible. I don't know that AI is a good solution. We'll see. Translation, we can't get the translation to work right. You could be correct. I don't know. It's not something I'm going to to take advantage of right now. That their app. I've got friends like Zach. I thought I could grab that one. Oh yeah, here it is. That make a living doing a lot of translating. Zach Davison did books like this, and Showa by Shigeru Mizuki, and it's weird. You don't want crap, so you got to be quick. But probably the solution would just be hire more than one person, something like that. That's my idea. What else we got? Let's see. If they also have to proofread the AI translation, they are just creating more work and expense for themselves. It's arguably still faster if they think it makes sense, but they're not like, I don't think that they're double checking the work. That I don't see how they could. Anyway. Speaking of apps, it's almost like I mapped this out. Three Worlds, Three Moons is launching its own reader app. I'll refresh your memory if you don't know Three Worlds, Three Moons, although a bunch of you probably do. Three World, Three Moons, or 3W3M, is sort of a collective. Jonathan Hickman, Mike Del Mundo, Mike Huddleston, super talented creators. They launched just now a reading app on Apple and Android for just their stuff. I found that interesting. They didn't partner with, say, I don't know, Global Comics, or, well, Omnibus is gone now, so it all is turning over so fast. But so far, this organization, this company, has published their comics exclusively on Substack. That's still their main platform. But then what happened is their top tier subscribers on Substack can now get a test version of their own reader app. And then they have plans to roll that out to everybody in a few months. I just found that interesting. Rather than partner with an existing application for reading comics, they just developed their own. I wonder where that would go from now. Like, is it that easy to create a reading app and an interface? I don't know. No, they did this all internally somehow. So more power to them. I find that interesting and ambitious, and I will be curious to see where it goes from here. What's so gross about Substack? I like that model of being able to support a creator directly and get access to content that way. I don't see the difference necessarily from paying for ads for videos, or a streaming service, or buying a physical comic. I guess I don't really see the difference unless there's something about Substack that I don't know. I don't have a problem with that model. I mean, right now I use Patreon, but who knows how long Patreon will continue to exist, for all I know. We'll see. I don't know of any problems with Substack. Okay, so Rob Liefeld had to apologize to somebody. Let me just jump back here because Jim has a comment. 3W3M is visionary work. Those three dudes are doing some next level stuff. I mean, yeah, that's what I like about something like Substack or Patreon, or, whatever subscription model you have. You're doing what you're passionate about and letting the audience find you, instead of like pitching it to a company. They take a big chunk and they try to market it like with their own idea. I love that idea. Don't worry, Spike. I was just curious. You weren't really bringing negativity per se. Oh, I see. Okay. Substack has poor content moderation. Okay. Well, I could see that is a concern. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Okay. So there can be some negative comments and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I will say that like Twitter has really devolved into just a cesspool. So I do get that. Oh, holy crap. No kidding. Okay, did not realize that. I didn't realize that because I'm in my bubble sometimes. I'm like, okay, Tom Brevoort and Jonathan Hickman and Chip Zdarsky use Substack. Cool, that's where I can get their stuff. I like the idea of it. I did not realize that they were platforming some objectionable people. Yeah, the company would and should take a stand on stuff like that. That's awful. Got it. I don't think that's negative necessarily. That's news. That's relevant. That's relevant. I appreciate that. Wow. Okay. Did not know that it was like that. I thought that basically people were subscribing to a channel, so the comments would generally be positive. Um, for instance, it's not super easy for me to moderate a live stream here, but fortunately, it seems like we've got a really kind and well-educated and passionate fan base that tunes into something like this. So that's interesting. All right. Well, moving on. So why did Liefeld apologize? Let's tell this story. So for this, you need to know who Shelby Robertson is. Shelby Robertson is an artist. He's done his own books like Femme 5. That's just one. Penciler on Chapel. Inker of a bunch of Liefeld projects. That's what's relevant to this news story. He inked Youngblood over Jim Toe, and then he's inked Rob Liefeld a bunch. Deadpool, Bad Blood, and Batter Blood, and Brigade, which he did over at Image. I've heard from some people that Shelby really added a lot. I don't know that for a fact. I haven't talked to either Rob Liefeld or Shelby Robertson. I'm just saying that I have heard that Shelby added a lot of the detail. And a lot of people say that, boy, I sound like a bad politician there. A lot of people say, but Bad Blood and Batter Blood had a lot of critics saying that they thought that the art was a step above what they'd seen recently. So, okay, so that's who Shelby Robertson is. So, in this new solicitation for Bloodstrike for a trade paperback, there's no credit there. Story art cover, Rob Liefeld. Nothing else mentioned. So Shelby posted this to Twitter this week. Yo, Image Comics, forget something? My work as inker is all over this book's interiors. No name credit given. Copy editor dropped the ball. LOL. Why was I pushing pre-orders on my regulars for this to begin with? Shaking my goddamn head. Hashtag fail. And he added, this is my 30th year as a pro. Happened 2 times to me in my career, both times while working with Rob. Not common at all. There was a reply from Liefeld, to be fair, and he says, I apologize and take full responsibility for not catching that. I will rectify it on additional printings. So at least he's apologized. It's bad, but it would be a lot worse if it was on the book itself. This is for an ad solicitation, just to be clear. It's a little weird, while we're at it, shouldn't the colorist probably get a mention on this too? I mean, you've got limited space, but still an inker, I think. Actual Dracula, yeah, we've talked about that, unfortunately. Anyway, not a great mistake to make. At least Liefeld apologized and said they'll be correcting it. But I just felt for Shelby. You do all this hard work, and it's like, and he's saying that he's pushing it to, his viewers, his fans, and stuff like that. That's tough. That's really tough. A Marvel editor spoke this week about why the original Ultimate Universe ended, because the Ultimate Universe at Marvel was tremendously popular. Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, that stuff was really popular. Marvel Zombies was really popular. That came out of Ultimate Fantastic Four. Really popular. Why did it end? So anyway, editor Ralph Macchio, not the Karate Kid actor Ralph Macchio, spelled the same, but Ralph Macchio was a guest at last week's Tampa Comic-Con, and on a panel, he actually addressed why Marvel ended the original Ultimate line of comics. He said that the original idea for the Ultimate line came from Marvel's vice president at the time, Bill Jemas. And that basically when Jemas left, it lost steam. Because, like, I guess Bill Jemas was very much like, the idea for this is to have none of that 40 years of continuity baggage. We don't need to do crossovers. We don't need to do anything like, we just need to tell good stories. That was the goal. But I guess when he left, that's when it sort of fell apart. Here's a quote. What happened was Bill left and other hands kind of took over, and I was kind of unhappy that they decided to kill off a lot of the Ultimate characters and the whole crossover thing. I don't think the Ultimate universe ever really recovered from that. He's talking about Ultimatum, which I made a video on Comic Tropes. We were outselling Avengers with Ultimates, and we were outselling the regular Spider-Man book with Ultimate Spider-Man. We got Marvel Zombies from that. Pretty straightforward, but yeah, interesting to just hear that enunciated. Yeah, Ultimatum just was so weird. They killed off so many characters. And then like Miles Morales was too popular to leave behind, so he just got shunted into the main universe. The other cool thing to still exist from the Ultimate universe is Maker. Great villain. It's the Reed Richards of that universe who became a villain. It's a really cool villain, though. It's one of Marvel's best right now. But does anyone remember the third character that came over from the Ultimate universe and lives in, the 616 continuity? Nobody remembers. Does anybody remember the third character that canonically does exist in Marvel 616 from the Ultimate universe? I'm just seeing. Okay, CW artist got it first. Yes, Jimmy Hudson, Wolverine's son. Jimmy Hudson came over, and they have totally forgotten and like abandoned that character. He is just gone. He is just gone. No, not Nick Fury. Not Nick Fury. Their Nick Fury was Brian Hitch drawing Samuel Jackson because it was fun, and then they hired Samuel Jackson to play the character in the movies. But in the 616, the current Nick Fury is Nick Fury's son. So yeah, it's Wolverine's son. Deadbeat dad Wolverine. Anyway, moving on. As long as I'm talking about X-Men, I'll mention this. Apparently, we're going to get more giant-size X-Men. Marvel's new X-Men group editor is Tom Brevoort, and he posted to his Substack this week that they have plans for more giant-size X-Men. Specifically, he teased that it'll happen in 2025 because that'll be the 50th anniversary of giant-size X-Men #1. And that's where X-Men rebooted. It may be hard to remember now, but X-Men started off kind of popular, and then it sort of went through a bunch of creator changes in the 60s, and then in a bunch of the 70s, it was actually just a reprint title. They were not doing anything with X-Men for about 5 years, I think it was, until Len Wein and Dave Cockrum rebooted it with Giant Size X-Men #1. And ever since then, it's been very, very popular. So, yeah. And here's part of a quote from Tom Brevoort. There will be some giant-size X-Men goodness coming your way in 2025 as a part of this anniversary celebration, but not exactly in the way that you're imagining. Stay tuned. My guess, X-Men in pudding form. We're going to have giant-size X-Men pudding. Wolverine lemon. Colossus strawberry. Blueberry Cyclops. Anyway, it's a great book, by the way. It holds up. This holds up as a really fun comic. All right. There's been a few days to process this one. So hopefully, if you're a fan, you know. If not, I'm really sorry to be the one to break it to you, but we lost another comic book artist this week, not just John Cassaday. Bernie Mireault passed away. Bernie was so underrated. So underrated. Great really fun, unique, visionary artist, Canadian comic book artist. I've talked about him in my episode about Grendel. He did a great couple of stories in Grendel. He worked on with Mike Allred on several projects, including a backup in Madman, where he created Dr. Robot, really cute, cool character. And he did his own title, The Jam, which was like about a guy, no superpowers, just sort of like hung out, sort of a crime fighter, not really, sort of. It's funny, it's unique, and he had a really cool art style, stripped down, really minimalist, but not in like trying to be an iconographic way, just telling what needed to be told to move the story forward. I like it a lot. I think he's got a great art style. He also illustrated, if you haven't read it, you should look this one up. He did a great Riddler story that was printed in the old book, Secret Origins. Neil Gaiman wrote it, and it was really a commentary on how comics had changed from Silver Age to then the modern age. It was an 80s book, a late 80s book. Oh, yeah. Yeah, check out The Jam. That's a great place to start. There are reprints out there. I recommend it. I think it's fun, funny, cool, different. I'm glad you know about it. Yeah, it's a great Riddler story. I want to say like it's called something like When is a Door Not a Door? I think that was what it was called. But anyway, it's really good. And his Grendel stuff is incredible. According to friends of Bernie's, co-workers, Bernie had trouble getting work lately. I know that he was doing like commissions for something really low, like $200 for like a really big commission. So he's been having trouble, I guess, getting work, and we don't know the full details, but he took his own life. So, when I have this opportunity, I'll just say, if you are suffering from like some sort of depression like that, and you don't seem to have a therapist or family or friends that you can talk to get the help, just know that there is, hotline. There are hotlines out there that you can call and get help. And I hope you will strongly consider that before doing anything else. Very sad, very sad. So I'll miss Bernie's artwork, and I look forward to rereading The Jam. Almost done with the news. This one just happened, and it probably came out because of how well Beetlejuice is doing. I saw it yesterday. It was pretty fun. Give it something like maybe a C plus if I'm feeling generous, which is entertaining. I had a good time. It wasn't quite up to as good as the original, but it has some moments in it that are really, really good, really funny. Michael Keaton's great. I thought Winona Ryder was pretty great. So yeah. I did, Dave. Nice to see you here, but I did talk about it, unfortunately. So yeah, we've talked about John Cassaday and Bernie Mireault, but let's talk about Ice Cream Man. I know I've talked about that on the show before. I think I tend to do like a 10 best horror in October, and I'm sure I've listed Ice Cream Man before because I know I've talked about it. But anyway, writers Alfred Goff and Miles Miller, who recently wrote Beetlejuice, got the rights to the Image Comics title Ice Cream Man, and they have plans to adapt it into a live-action film. So if you haven't read it, it's a little tough to describe because it's been going for a while, but it is sort of like an anthology to a degree, except the stories eventually loosely connect, and at the center of them is this guy, Rick. He's an ice cream man, but he has supernatural powers too, and he's a corrupting influence. It's pretty cool. Previous comics projects by Goff and Miller, they wrote the story for Spider-Man 2, the movie, and they created Smallville. So they're no strangers to comics adaptations. I hope it can be done justice. It's a great comic, though, no matter what. He's not really the host. He gets involved. Yes, that's so funny that you remember that. I don't know how many people out there remember Quibi, because Quibi did not last long. They were like a streaming service that would create shows in 10-minute increments, which is just incredibly annoying. They did have an option to make an Ice Cream Man show, but fortunately, I think they went bankrupt before they could adopt that. 10 minutes. I think it was 10 minutes. I hope it wasn't 5. Anyway. 2 more pieces of news that I want to talk about. This is a fun one. There's a New Hampshire town that loves Ninja Turtles, and they're celebrating them. Specifically, I'm talking about Dover, New Hampshire. Dover, New Hampshire is where Eastman and Laird first conceived the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And the town has created murals and signs and even manhole covers to sort of celebrate that. You know, it's a small New England town, and this is part of what brings in some tourism. So I don't blame them for that. Well, now they've got something new. They've got an exhibit at the Woodman Museum. Now, don't get it too confused in terms of expectations. It is a large house as compared to, like, you know, a sprawling Smithsonian museum. It's not that. I know about the Woodman Museum because they have really unique New England things. They've got a stuffed polar bear there. You know, what do they call that when you stuff a dead animal? Taxidermied. And then they also have like this Victorian funeral procession and like ancient like wood burning stoves. It's all just sort of weird New England history. But now they've also got a Ninja Turtles exhibit. Among the exhibit's highlights, there's an arcade game where you can play the Ninja Turtles. They've got vinyl records of the soundtracks from the movies. They've got first run Turtles comics, and they've got tons of merchandise, just tons of merchandise. Oh, and these bronze statues. They've got bronze statues of the Turtles and Splinter. So it looks fun. If I still lived in Massachusetts, I'd probably drive up. No sewers, but as I say, if you go through the streets, there is at least one manhole cover that's been designed to look like it's got the Ninja Turtles logo on it. Yeah. Last thing I'll talk about this week is comic book store perfume. That's something we've all been hoping for, right? Well, it's a real thing, folks. Fragrance maker Lola James Harper has released this new perfume called 9, the Comic Store of George. That's what they call it. I don't know. It's not supposed to smell like mold and BO, just to be clear. They have a candle and a spray. I think it costs €49. And they say that it smells like wood and paper. Like visiting a nice comic shop. The description, if you go to their website, mentions that there was a comic shop in New York on 8th Avenue called George's. I don't think that's real. I think that that's just a story they're telling to make it sound charming. That would be cool. That would be cool. Poorly aging drop ceilings. Summer of George! I don't know what else to say. Apparently, who got some of this? There's a comic writer, Scott Snyder, said that his wife bought it for him. I don't know how many overpriced variants you could buy for €49. I'm sorry, I don't know that. But I was amused. And hopefully you are all similarly amused. We'll talk about some of the comics that came out this week. Let me just set my camera up here. I'm just getting it in focus for the show. I think that should do it. There we go. All right. Remove. Time to add another camera. Add camera. How do I do this again? Oh, there it is. Okay. There were a bunch of comics this week that I got. Helend of Wyndhorn, Plastic Man No More, Scarlett, Birds of Prey, Immortal Thor, Hate Revisited, The Ultimates 4. That's actually probably what we're talking about. Incredible Hulk 16, Holy Roller 8 of 9, and The Blood Brothers Mother issue 2 through Distillery. But I actually still mean to pick up a few comics that I didn't get to. Helend of Wyndhorn, I think that there's going to be, 6 issues. This is issue 4. This is an incredible book, folks. Really, really good. Look at this artwork by Bilquis Evely. This is sort of diegetic, as in this is like an illustration in a book that characters are reading. So it's meant to sort of evoke like Conan the Barbarian or something. I just think that looks really, really cool. But it's a great story. Helend is such a broken individual. This is about her having discovered that her grandfather actually visits a supernatural crazy world. She spends like a year training to become like capable of going on adventures with him. And she does, but it does not go the way you would expect. But look at the detail. I don't know how else to describe Bilquis's artwork at this point. Last time I talked really about the storytelling decisions, and I've talked before about the plot. And Tom King is good. There's some interesting dialogue. You can really tell these characters apart. But I just I love how intricate this is without feeling cluttered. In person, this looks even better. Like, you know, it's just great. The action is still like, this is still dynamic. It's not stiff. Sometimes there are artists that can add a lot of detail, but then their action doesn't flow too well, you know. But Bilquis can do both. Just really, really great book. The environments are incredible. The coloring is just amazing, really evocative of moods as compared to being realistic. It's pretty badass. It's not like fun fantasy. It's like when there's action, you know, it's violent, gory, tough, you know, like something you'd see in Conan. But then at home, you know, it's about a very broken teenage girl, you know, a girl who lost her father, doesn't know her mother at all, and whose grandfather isn't really there for her in the best way. So, strong recommendation, folks, if you haven't checked it out. This is a really cool comic. I think it's going to be remembered very, very strongly as long as it nails the ending, which we will see. But I have nothing but good things to say right now about Helend of Wyndhorn. It's the top on my reading pile every week. Really, really strong. Plastic Man No More I picked up because this is sort of telling the story of Plastic Man in a near future who is dying, and how, since he's sort of a man of plastic, that's not really a normal dying thing. It's more happens to plastic. There's a few pages in the beginning that give you his origin and everything if you don't know anything about Plastic Man. And then it cuts to, you know, him 20 years later working with the Justice League, and you know, he gets blasted by a death ray, and then is like, Superman says, "Well done, everybody," and Plastic Man says, No kidding, well done. I prefer myself more medium rare. And everyone like on the team laughs. They think he's always joking. And he's like, I mean it though. It really hurts, but they never take him seriously because he's sort of a prankster and a joker. And after that death ray hits, he starts like his right arm starts melting and falling apart, and he can't regrow it. He ends up like carrying it around in a bag and meeting a scientist. He's mostly worried about his son in this. He's got a great connection with Detective Chimp. Detective Chimp is the only one that takes him seriously and is like, "Hey, everyone else is laughing, thinking you're making jokes. I can tell that you're, scared about what's happening to you. Here's like the name of a scientist I think you should talk to." And he's like, "Thanks, pal. Us folks in the cheap seats got to look out for each other, right?" And he just goes, "Cheap seats." So it's like he feels like even Plastic Man isn't really taking him seriously. Plastic Man was a thief before he got superpowers and decided to be a superhero. So he's a bit of he's got some internal conflict. He's funny, but he's never been a perfect person. And in this, he's like he talks to his estranged adult son who also would have similar powers, and he's like trying to connect with him, and the kid wants nothing to do with him. But yeah, the stuff that happens to Plastic when it finally breaks down, it doesn't really go into all of the scientific detail, but I've read a little. Like, it stops bonding at a certain point. And at first it seems like it's melting, but really it's breaking into tiny, tiny microplastic beads. So if that's what's going to happen to Plastic Man here, that's some pretty dark stuff, actually. Yeah, he uses humor to hide his feelings, and in turn, nobody takes him seriously. I could see that, but this isn't about him just dying. He's fighting it, okay? He's trying to be, his character arc is he's trying to be a better person. So that's heroic. Yeah, we did talk about it, Steve. Sadly, we did talk about it, but thank you for this, the super chat. Yeah, we did talk about it. It's rough. Anyway, wait, hold on. Looks like it's stretching, actually pulling apart at the atomic level into dust. Yeah, so at first it sort of looks like melting, but really it's breaking down. They haven't really gotten into that yet. It's cooler than I expected. Scarlett is decent if you're super into either G.I. Joe or the Energon universe, but I will say it's probably my least favorite of the sort of books with, Void Rivals, Transformers, G.I. Joe. It isn't bad. I'm not saying that. I'm really not, but it's also just I don't know. The art looks cool at a distance, but like in practice, like I find it a little confusing. And I'm not trying to be mean, but it's like, okay, clearly Storm Shadow's kicking butt here. And at a glance, I can see that. But I feel like there's something close to some weird tangents here where he's breaking this panel border and it almost lines up with the sword in the next panel. So and with it being like primarily one color, I have a little bit of trouble like separating this when I glance at these two panels. And also, like, I guess he's punching this guy across the face, but the action looks like he just punched inward. You get it? Like the guy's face is like sort of caving in here, but then the speed lines are indicating it moved across. So these are just small decisions that made it a little confusing for me sometimes panel to panel. It's not it's better than I can do, so I'm really not trying to like put it down. I'm just saying that it like keeps me from enjoying it as much as I could. But what I like the most is the character work that they do in this. Scarlett and Jinx are two basically ninjas, soldiers, and Jinx is deep undercover with a ninja clan, and Scarlett is going undercover to try to rescue her. Things are not going easy. I did like the idea behind this. There's a 2-page spread of Scarlett, Jinx, and Storm Shadow fighting a bunch of thugs. And so they've drawn multiple iterations of some of these characters. However, it literally is just multiple iterations. It isn't like he's moving across with, say, the DeLuca effect. I guess this would technically be the DeLuca effect. If you don't know what I'm talking about there, that's just one name for when you break up action, but without panel breaks. So, like, for instance, there was a artist from Italy called Johnny DeLuca, and he, for instance, did this book where he's it's Hamlet. This is all adaptations of Shakespeare, and so he has the character walking across the environment, and you're guided by the motion and you're guided by the text, but there's no breaks. But we don't read this and think, oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 iterations of this character. He's got clones. That's not how you read it. It's an interesting technique, but this isn't that, because there's like a storm shadow here and a storm shadow here and a storm shadow here, but it doesn't look like this is all moving in one direction across the page, really. It's just showing sort of some chaos of a fight scene. So I like the idea. I don't, but I think that this could have also been, and it would take more planning, but it could have been executed in a really dynamic way. Like if this artist had mapped out what 3 different characters were doing to move across one locked in environment, that would be very, very impressive to me. I understand how tough that could be. I really do. But like, like this is Scarlett, this is Scarlett. These are Scarlett over here to the right, but it doesn't look like that's one character moving across, but it could have. I've done it. I don't know if I did an episode or if I just did a short, but yeah, there is some people may call it something else, but I call it the DeLuca effect. Maybe. But if you're ever curious, this book, Johnny DeLuca, Shakespeare and Comics, it's a big, oversized book. It's hard to show on this little camera when I'm zoomed in. I like Shakespeare and I like good art. I like what this artist does. So these are all examples of, what I tend to call the DeLuca effect. And I think a lot of other people do too. I'm not claiming that I created that name. So it's good character work. It's got some interesting ideas and it may pay off. So far, I'm just sort of like, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, this is also written by Kelly Thompson. So Kelly Thompson is very busy. She's writing a lot of interesting stuff. And she is good at like writing female protagonists that actually each have different motivations, and you can tell, they have different personalities. They're not just there. Scarlett and Jinx are 2 different characters. Birds of Prey, this is a whole team of women, and they're radically different. So I will give Kelly Thompson a lot of credit for how she develops that. This artist is Gavin Guidry, and he just has a great clean style. It's really, really nice. But as far as like the stakes in this book, I love the first arc a lot more. This one basically has a supervillain that has a vendetta against Batgirl. But the problem is Batgirl's only a little bit in the story. And for something that personal, there should have been a bigger connection, in my opinion, to make that count and make us feel that a little bit more. So I think that was my problem with it. I learned about the DeLuca effect from a great channel called Strip Panel Naked, where he was talking to Trad Moore. That's really cool. I thought I made an episode, but now I'm starting to doubt myself. Maybe I didn't make an episode about it. I don't know. Maybe that is where I discussed it. I think you could be right. I may have discussed it within context of something else. It's hard to remember my own episodes. I've made a few of them. But the Birds of Prey team, I think, matters. And the first arc had a different team where it had Harley Quinn, Zealot, Big Barda, and Black Canary. Oh, and Batgirl, if I didn't say that. It was a really good dynamic. It really a lot of personalities that were butting heads versus Zealot isn't really in this. She's sort of doing some stuff on the side. Harley Quinn is not in this at all. They've added Vixen. They've added Black Canary's sister, Sin. They all kind of get along a lot better in the second arc, which is okay. It's just that conflict in the first arc was actually kind of funny and engaging and stuff like that. And I just think that this villain could have connected in a bigger way if Barbara Gordon Batgirl was more front and center. Yeah. Oh, I did? Okay. That is the Zealot, just to be clear. But yeah. I've said before that I really like Al Ewing as a writer. I certainly loved his Hulk run, Immortal Hulk. Immortal Thor keeps having good ideas, and then it just sort of fizzles out. It's all about Thor is literally got the power of Odin now. He's the All-Father. He's just so ridiculously powerful. And so the only thing that sort of keeps him from being able to solve every problem is he keeps getting these magical riddles. And that would probably read so much better in a novel or even being acted by actors. Whereas in a comic where you really need some action, it's not as interesting to see him reasoning out riddles all the time. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And they haven't had a consistent artist either. They keep getting different artists. The covers by Alex Ross are great. Don't get me wrong. The covers are great. I think Alex Ross has been doing some of the best work of his career on the covers of Fantastic Four and Thor. I love it. But I hate when the artist keeps changing up, and they keep giving me ideas that I liked, Thor's rights for the Marvel comic, and Marvel comics take place within Marvel Comics. The rights to Thor got bought by Roxxon, an evil corporation, and Enchantress here cast a spell so that Thor loses his smarts and his power when he's on Earth. But then he's not punishing Enchantress when she's in Asgard because he's the king of Asgard and he has to be fair. And I'm like, what? What? Is she a villain or is she not? I don't know. So this is average. I'm not trying to be negative today. Let me talk about one that I liked. The Ultimates. Only issue 4, but we got a standalone story about Doom, who is this new Ultimate Universes version of Reed Richards. Artwork by Phil Noto, and it's very intentionally broken out into 4 panels consistently, which show different periods in his life. Okay, they all go across in different ways. But in this world, Reed Richards was something was done to make the Fantastic Four's mission fall apart. Okay. And he doesn't really know yet why, but all of his best friends died instead of getting superpowers. And then he got captured by the evil guy Maker and brainwashed and abused. And he's just been trying to find a way to save the lives of his friends still, even though the rest of the team agreed that they wouldn't use any time travel shenanigans or anything. So this one I find Ultimates keeps getting better. The first issue of Ultimates, I was it's okay. And then like they started like giving us very different versions of like Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne and Reed Richards. And I'm like, okay, this plays on what I know from the main universe, but it also just works in and of itself. I don't think you need to know it, but it's really cool. This is Phil Noto, yeah, and it's some really nice looking artwork by Phil Noto. Because it's like Phil Noto does really good, nice looking people and real environments. And there's something, even though this is like a real weird cosmic story, very grounded about like it centers on the person's reactions to everything that's happening to it. It's very much internalized, even though that we're objectively seeing Reed Richards here. When you read this, Dennis Camp has written it such that you really feel like you're in the headspace of the main character. And all the other stuff, like with the rest of the team, doesn't really need to factor in right now. It's just about getting to know this version of this character. It's really been good. Last issue was like a totally different take on She-Hulk that I found absolutely interesting and engaging. So I like how Ultimates is pacing itself. We're getting to know these characters pretty well. We'll probably need to at some point in like get to know Captain America, Tony Stark, Thor better in this world, but they're doing it sort of like 1 to 2 at a time, and I really like it. It's well paced. It's there. Yeah, it's really, really nice. Oh, that's where I covered it. Thank you, Paul. I thought I talked about it. I totally forgot. You're right. I talked about Bruno Redondo's work on Nightwing, and that's where I brought it up. Thank you for helping me. I could not remember. So I actually like this. I like this a lot. It is a tragedy, and yet there's like there's this element of hope that he's still going and that he's looking for a solution. And this is like a very kind of broken Reed, but it's a Reed that still has his smarts. And I think what's heroic about him is that he's still going. So pretty good superhero book. Pretty good. There's probably not a lot I could say about something like Hate Revisited because, you know, humor is so subjective. You know, I could say that I found the best Saturday Night Live skit that really made me laugh out loud. And I could break it down and explain like what a clever reference this was or what good timing this had. But if it's not funny to you, it's not funny to you. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the humor in this, it might be funny to you, it might not. I like this sort of slice of life stuff. I like that it jumps around in time for like a slacker in the 80s and 90s, and then seeing him as an adult today and like the contrasts and how he's changed in some ways and how he hasn't in others. But it's probably not for everybody. I just can't explain it. You know, it's either funny to you or it's not. I want to talk about Blood Brothers Mother briefly. Brian Azzarello and Edward Risso were a fantastic team on 100 Bullets. Great team. And now they're doing a Western. And first of all, I'll say, I thought the dialogue was pretty great in this issue. Like, I thought Azzarello really captured the patois of what people would talk like in the Old West. And I actually really like how focused issue 2 is. I like it more than issue 1. It really focuses on these 3 young brothers whose mother was abducted by their outlaw father. And I'm also impressed with how different Eduardo Risso's artwork can look in different contexts. The first thing I ever saw by Risso was a black and white comic he did back in Argentina called, I want to say, The Little Boy Vampire or The Little Vampire. And then, of course, he does things like 100 Bullets, which is, you know, drawn and inked very traditionally. And then this has watercolors, and it's just such a different feel. That's all I can say. It's a really different feel. Wait, the funniest skit was Toonces? Look, Toonces was funny for its time, but let's see. What's the funniest SNL skit of all time? That's more important than talking about how great this comic is. The funniest SNL skit. There are some that I go back to and laugh at. I wonder. Oh, it's worse than that. It's worse than that, Kevin. He got a knife to it, not a gunshot, but a knife. Anyway, it's got some really unsavory dudes in this, and it looks great. It talks great, and this is really focused with ups and downs for these kids, really young, trying to make their way to rescue their mother from their outlaw father. And I don't even know for sure if their mother necessarily wants to be rescued. She's a little not great either. Pedro Pascal as Mario. Lazy Sunday. David S. Pumpkin. Matt Foley was pretty damn good. Gus Chiggins, the old prospector. I don't know Smart Ronald Reagan. I'm just a simple caveman. Your cars scare me. Lazy Sunday. Cowbell was pretty damn good. Yeah. I don't think that one's aged that great, but yeah. Theory Moonshine comic was a great werewolf story. I don't know that one. Phil Hartman was so strong on that show. Yes, that was good. Oh yeah, I liked it too. Christopher Walken was always pretty damn good. Funniest SNL skit is the song where they used every slang word for penis. I don't remember that. Sprockets, now is the time we dance. The ambiguously gay duo. These are a lot. Taco Town is pretty damn funny. A pizza? Now that's what I call a taco. That's pretty damn good. There's a lot of stuff I liked by The Lonely Island as far as newer stuff. Boy, there's a lot of great actors, but I'm trying to think of like a sketch that you can just go like, that's a really strong sketch. Norm was definitely my favorite news host, although there's been a lot of good ones. But, yeah. Black Jeopardy, Chadwick Boseman. Papyrus was good. Laser Cats. The Two Brothers, yeah. Yeah, it's called Dear Sister. That's a good one. Sounds like you guys have seen a little bit of SNL. It's crazy how long SNL has been around. That's about everything I've got to say for comics that came out this week. It's been 2 hours, so I guess I'll wrap it up. I was giving a little thought to drawing, but I'm kind of tired. And I've got a lot of comics to read that I picked up at like Rose City Comic Con. I'm really looking forward to reading Misty next. Let's see. I saw that you didn't make it. Thanks for jumping in, though. Comics with Bueller. That's a fun... Comics with Bueller, he's doing something kind of cool with his channel right now. He's converted his van, and he travels around the country visiting comic shops with a goal to hit every comic shop. I love that idea. I hope you're having fun with it. Let's see. I saw that. Thank goodness. Yes. Very happy. Bill Hader was one of their best impressionists ever. And a lot of people might say, who's that other guy that was good at impressions? Daryl Hammond. But I think that Bill Hader always added like some weird twist instead of just doing a good voice. Yeah. Been on the road 3 years now. Wow. Well, there's a lot on the East Coast to see. Dana Carvey also did do a lot of impressions. Yeah, he was good. He was good. Let's see. Azzarello and Risso did the werewolf ongoing Moonshine that was set in Virginia, New Orleans, New York. I didn't know that. Really? I really enjoyed Azzarello and Risso on 100 Bullets, and I am enjoying Blood Brothers Mother. I like werewolves as well, so I will check out Moonshine. Thank you. I was not under... I was not picking up on that when somebody else mentioned that. I will definitely check that out. I wanted to check out Absolute Power #3. That was one that I just didn't get a chance to pick up yet this week. There were a couple that I just didn't get a chance to pick up. It's been a very busy week. For instance, I still haven't wrapped up the edit on the latest Comic Tropes. Sorry, everybody. I'm really, really close, okay? I'm really close. In fact, as soon as I wrap this up, I'm probably just gonna like grab some sort of small dinner and eat it right here and try to edit some more. I'm close. I'm close. I'll have that soon. And please, I think this will be fun, guys. What's this Friday? Anybody look at the calendar and see what this Friday is? Because we've got a little something for Trash Movie Bonanza this Friday. You could probably intuit what it is if you look at the calendar. It's always a big day for me every time it comes around. No, not Pizza Friday. Moonshine is great. Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. I love Jason movies. I can't objectively call any of them good, but I love them. And I think Jim and I put together one of our more entertaining episodes. That looks good. What's this? What's this, Chris? I don't know. I need to do something with my hair. There we go. Jason's Magical Garbage Day. Join us. Yes. Born on a Friday. Ooh, born on a Friday the 13th. Well, you may not like them, but you might still enjoy our commentary on it. Jason X is a decent guess as to like one of them. We chose two that we'll say underperformed. We'll say that they underperformed. I still enjoy them for what they are. But boy, some of those Jason movies, almost all of them, pretty ridiculous. No, we don't. We record that one, and we've got an editor, Jamie Wood. He also does Jim and Sean Crystal's show, Ink Pulp Live. They do that like about every 2 weeks on the Ink Pulp channel. Jamie also edits Mark Miller's show. So we've got a great editor that makes us look smarter. Tom's hair is good. I agree. Tom's hair is good. Anyway, so I just really recommend that. I hope you guys enjoy that one. Yeah. And maybe we need to have like a guest, or we need to have like some more big name movies that we do, but I'm having a blast doing what we are. We need to like sort of like get that out to more people. Yes, I do have that sort of Conan O'Brien thing going. Gonna just sort of get my pompadour. What if I just talk like Jay Leno from now on, even though I've got Conan O'Brien's hair? Yeah. You like cars? You guys like cars? I like cars. I also like wearing denim. Yeah. Do the dance. That's the best I can do in like this small area. Yes. Look at I've become such a whore for this Jim the Food gentleman, but I value our friendship, Jim. This Wednesday, 2 days from now, Ink Pulp Live special guest Andy Kubert. Maybe someday I'll draw well enough that I could appear on Ink Pulp. That would be a treat. Everybody that sells cars has sold at least one car to Jay Leno. He's up to 5,000 cars now. Anyway. That dance gave you depression? I'll never dance again. Never gonna dance again. All right. I think that's everything I've got to talk about for comics this week, right? What an up and down show. That was a roller coaster. Maybe not my best paced show, but I think we covered a lot of interesting stuff. My thanks again to Tom Scioli. Check out Godzilla Monster Piece Theater. Get those orders in before Monday. And I will see you here next week. I do recommend, if you want some more of this, more like comic book news, I mean, check out Bronze Age Nerd. He and Big B McFly, the comic book guy, are about to do a live show, and I'll probably be in there like chatting while I do other things. So I thank you everybody for being here and adding to it. Your questions and comments really like they fuel me. They fuel the show. I love what you guys add to it. Thank you very much. I'll have a Comic Tropes up very soon. I'm very close to wrapping the edit on that. And this Friday the 13th, baby. Check it out on this channel. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Bye. Keep reading comics.